Hi friends, hope you are doing great. Today we are going to see Google Cloud Deployment Manager. So before to Google Cloud Deployment Manager, we are going to discuss infrastructure as code provides a systematic and automated approach to deploying infrastructure. IT teams no longer have to manually provision infrastructure which is susceptible to human error and does not properly scale when large amounts of resources are provisioned. With this method, you define your infrastructure in code using configuration files to provision resources. These configuration files can also be version controlled for other team members to modify. IT teams use infrastructure as code tools to orchestrate deployment of multiple resources using a configuration language. For cloud based workloads, the choice often comes down to third party tools like Terraform and platform specific tools such as Google Cloud Deployment Manager, AWS Cloud Formation, this is for Amazon Web Services, and Azure Resource Manager, this is for Microsoft Azure. Now we are going to see what is a Google Cloud Deployment Manager. This is given in the documentation, Google Cloud documentation. So Google Cloud Deployment Manager, it is an infrastructure deployment service that automates the creation and management of Google Cloud resources. We can write flexible templates and configuration files and use them to create deployments that have a variety of Google Cloud services such as cloud storage, compute engine, and cloud SQL configured to work together. Now we are going to see the fundamental deployment manager fundamentals. So deployment manager fundamentals, the following components are the fundamentals of deployment manager. Deployment, we are going to see what is a deployment, what is a configuration, what is a templates, and what is a resource, what is a types, and what is a manifest. So we are going to see each and everything. First we are going to see what is a template. A template, it is a collection of resources that are deployed and managed together using a configuration. Next we are going to see what is a configuration. A configuration describes all the resources we want for a single deployment. A configuration, it is file written in YAML syntax that lists each of the resources we want to create and its respective resource properties. A configuration must contain a resources section followed by the list of resources to create. Each resource must contain three components. First one is name, and second is type, and third is properties. So what is a name? A user defined string to identify this resource such as my VM, project data disk, the test network. And next one is a type, the type of resource being deployed such as compute v1 instance, compute v1 disk. The base resource types are described and listed on the supported resource types documentation. We can refer the documentation, Google Cloud documentation. And finally, properties. The parameters for this resource type, they must match the properties for the type such as zone, Asia East 1 A. Boot is true. So like that the properties it will be. Next we are going to talk about the templates. A templates, a basic configuration file might be enough for simple workload, but for more complex architecture or for configuration that we plan to reuse, we can break our configuration into templates. So a template, it is a separate file that is imported and used as type in a configuration. We can use as many templates as we want in a configuration. Templates allows us to separate our configuration out into different pieces that we can use and reuse across different deployments. Templates can be generalized or specific as we need. With templates, we can also take advantages of features like template properties, environment variables, modules, and other template functionality to create dynamic configuration and template files. Templates are much more flexible than individual configuration files and intended to support easy portability across deployments. Finally, a template file is written in either Python or Jinja 2. Next, we are going to see about the resource. So, a resource represents a single API resource. This can be an API resource provided by a Google managed base type or an API resource provided by a type provider. For example, a compute engine instance is a single resource, a cloud SQL instance is a single resource, and so on. To specify a resource, we provide a type for that resource. So, what is the types? To create a resource in Deployment Manager, we must specify a type. A type can represent a single API resource known as a base type or a set of resources known as a composite type that will be created as part of our deployment. For example, to create a compute engine VM instance, specify the corresponding base type like so in our configuration. Next, we are going to see what is a base type, what is a composite type. So, base type and type properties, base types and type providers. A base type creates a single primitive resource. For example, Google owned base types include compute v1 instance, storage v1 bucket, and SQL admin v1 beta 4 database, all of which are served by the respective compute engine v1 API, cloud storage v1 API, and cloud SQL v1 beta 4 admin API. Base types are supported by a RESTful API that supports create, read, update, and delete CRUD operations. We can also create additional base types by adding a type provider if the Google owned types alone don't meet our needs. Creating a type provider exposes all resources of an API as base types that we can use. To create a type provider, we must supply an API descriptor document, which can be an open API specification or Google discovery, adjust and necessary input mappings for the API, and register the type with Deployment Manager. Once created, we and other users with access to our project can use the types provided by the provider. When we add a type provider, all the resources that are provided by the API and supported by a RESTful interface with create, read, update, and delete operations will be exposed as types that we can use in our deployment. So next we are going to talk about the composite types. A composite types contains one or more templates that are pre-configured to work together. These templates expand to set of base types when deployed in a deployment. Composite types are essentially hosted templates that we can add to Deployment Manager. We can create composite types for common solutions so that the solution is easily reusable or create complex setups that we can reuse in the future. Next, we are going to talk about manifest. A manifest is a read-only object that contains the original configuration we provided, including any imported templates, and also contains the fully expanded resource list created by Deployment Manager. Each time we update a deployment, Deployment Manager generates a new manifest file to reflect the new state of the deployment. When troubleshooting an issue with a deployment, it is useful to view the manifest. Each deployment has a corresponding manifest. A manifest is a read-only property that describes all the resources in our deployment and is automatically created with each new deployment. Manifests are not modifiable after they have been created. A manifest is the same as the configuration file but is created based on the configuration file. A manifest is not the same as a configuration file. A manifest is not the same as a configuration file but is created based on the configuration file. Thanks a lot, friends. We have seen the concepts of the Cloud Deployment Manager. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Bye bye.